Ladies and gentlemen, today is August 9th, 2017, and this is the KNKL episode 347, where we learn to be better artists, and this is Concept Art Bootcamp Day 4, where I'm teaching you guys how to become the next big thing, strike out on your own and become the next big concept artist, and go on and do amazing things. So, today we're going to be learning how to design your weapon. That's right, I'm talking about you. Your weapon. We're going to be designing swords, and we're going to be talking about motifs, and what the heck is a motif, and why I wish I would have learned this stuff earlier on in my career. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be treading a little bit more on a concept that we talked about last week, and that is the small, medium, large technique. And we can see a good example of this right here. From many different cultures and history, they've all developed their own designs, and they all fall into, they're pleasing to look at, they're interesting to look at. And the most interesting thing is that they all fall into that same principle that I talked about last week, and that is, of course, the small, medium, large technique. And you can actually see this a lot easier if you go into Google, download a couple of these designs or motifs for yourself, and then drop them into Photoshop. And as you can see here, hit Control-U, which we also learned about last week. Take your saturation, bring it all the way down. Bring it all the way down. Turn these black and white. And that should allow you to look at these in terms of just shapes, because sometimes color can throw you off a little bit. And then you can see here, I'm just kind of outlining. The green represents large, blue, medium, and red, small. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, that's why these are interesting to look at. That's why these designs have held up over hundreds and thousands of years. Because people like them, they're pleasing, and they're balanced. And that is going to be what we're going to be making today. We are going to be creating our weapon of balance for your character. And I was actually thinking some more about this, because I thought that the first character that we should design is probably somebody that's inspired by ourselves. We should design a video game character that's inspired from ourselves, because we can all relate to that. And I think we're going to have a good time with that. So let's go ahead and get started. So this sword is all well and good, that's nice, but how do we actually make that, Keenan? Okay, well, I'm going to show you. Here we go. All you're going to do is create a new layer. New layer like this. And go ahead and pick your color of choice. I always like to go for a bluish purple for reasons unknown. Let's go ahead and pull out our chalk brush from the KNKL Essentials, which I'm sure you downloaded in the description. All right, I'm teaching you guys how to become amazing with just 4 brushes. And let's go ahead and hit caps lock. Well, mine was on, but you don't have to hit caps lock. Let's go ahead and begin drawing our sword. I'm going to task you with an interesting thing, and that is only draw half of it. Only draw half of it. And you can get a little crazy here, because right now we're drawing the hilt. Maybe you want to have it have spikes on it or something. Maybe you want it to be a little bit more crazy looking. Okay, have some spikes on there. What the heck, why not? And let's go ahead and size this down, because this hilt is going to be massive. We don't like that. Let's say we want this thing to be a little bit more barbaric looking. How cool is that? Okay, that looks good. That looks good. Now, what I'll ask that you do back on your hilt is give it an end point right here. Maybe draw like a little line through, like this. Maybe kind of draw in how the spikes will attach to this type of thing. Not getting too crazy with it. But then also draw a small line around the outer edge of this blade. And what that's going to do is it's going to represent the edge of the blade, obviously. It's going to represent the sharpened edge. Okay? And maybe just throw in a couple lines in here just for the heck of it. Just for the heck of it. But also keep in mind, they should be smaller lines. These should represent smaller details that will represent the inside of the blade. Or that will be on the inside of the blade. I'm repeating so many friggin' words today. It's so hard. It's so hard. I'm trying to sound grandiloquent, okay? I'm trying to impress you with my amazing speech patterns. Okay? So now that you have a weapon designed, we're going to go ahead and flip this around. So let's go ahead and hit Control-J to duplicate this. Duplicate your lines. You'll notice they got a little thicker. That's because you actually just duplicated the layer. Now what I want you to do is hit Control-T. Then I want you to flip horizontal. Flip it horizontally, and then sort of move this to the desired location of where you want your sword to be. And look at it in 2 different ways, like, because you'll notice this hilt is way too large. Don't worry, you can fix that in just a moment. Maybe just focus on the blade first and be like, oh, I like the way that that blade looks. Oh, I like the way that that blade looks. But there's another thing that you can do, and that involves rotating. You can also rotate this to get a different feel, a different look and feel. You might get something like this. This is oftentimes going to create a very cartoony looking blade, but that might be your style. You might dig that. So go ahead. I think that this actually looks quite nice. I like that amount of rotation on it. Let's go ahead and hit enter. And then let's go ahead and hit Control E. We're going to Control E, which is going to merge those two layers together. You can hit Control T again to kind of rotate it back into position. And then now you can begin, say, lassoing areas like this hilt and kind of crunching that down, right? I just hit Control T again. Now I am holding Alt. When you hold Alt when you're transforming, both sides come in at the same time, okay? And you might end up with something like that, okay? So that is lesson 1. That's how you design a sword. Isn't that easy? Didn't I just, oh man, I'm seriously so proud of myself for like figuring out how to condense that into, how long have we been going? Maybe like 3 minutes? That is awesome. That is awesome. So there you go. But now we have another problem. So we have a sword here. It's kind of cool, but does it have a unifying design? Does it have a unifying motif? The answer is, well, maybe. It's kind of spiky, but maybe we want to step it up a notch. So now we're going to move into the next important thing. The next most important thing as a concept artist is learning right away that your ideas suck. Your ideas suck, and that you need to be creating a ton of iterations. You need to create a ton of different kinds, different variations of your weapons, okay? So let's go ahead and design a few with some of these motifs in mind. And we can alter them and make them look cool. So let's go ahead and move these down. Oh, whoops. Okay. As I wrestle with the menus here for a second, one moment. So I'll just move this off to the side. Let's take these swords, put them here. Let's go ahead and look at some of these motifs, and let's see if we can create a Spanish cartoony looking sword. Okay, and I probably won't have time to do all of these motifs because I got to catch a flight to Super Smash Con, which, by the way, I'll have some information for how you guys can come out and see me if you'd like to. Going to be, what's the word? Exhibiting! We're going to be exhibiting and showing off our new game. Of course, that's Wave Dash, or Icons Arena by Wave Dash. And I'm going to be there doing an art panel talking about, hey, more of this stuff, more concept art. So if you guys are interested in the process for creating characters and creating worlds, then come see me. And that is, of course, in the Virginia area, close to Washington, D.C. And that's going on this weekend. So, okay, but that's enough plugging. Let's get back to chugging. Okay, so what we want to do is on the inside of this blade, we want to take a close look at these Spanish motifs and ask ourselves, okay, what makes it look like this? Well, there's floral patterns. These look like flowers, but they're also kind of mixed in. They can also be kind of spiky, which will look good on this sword. Now, what I'm going to ask that you do is, again, go back to almost thinking about only half of this sword. Only half of this sword. So let's design based upon... Oh, whoops. That is not perfectly in line. That is not perfectly in line, but that's okay. Go back to designing just half the sword. So we notice that we have, up here, we have designs that look like, say, this type of thing. Well, let's start with something like that. That could make a cool motif. And always be watching for ways that you can make things feel more small, medium, large. So we have these nice big shapes. But let's say, what if the blade almost followed this? And you'll notice that I'm just kind of going crazy on this. You'll notice that I'm just kind of, we like to call this free drawing, free associating. Because no matter what you do, you're always going to have a lot of designs that just end up looking a little bit weird. You're going to come across a lot of terrible ideas before you get to the final one that ends up working. And that's the first thing that I really want to tell you guys in terms of mindset. You have to consider the fact that a lot of the time things are just not going to work out for you. A lot of the time things are just not going to work out exactly the way that you wanted. And it's going to be terrible. But don't be disheartened by that. Don't be disheartened by that, because think of, that's literally your job. Your job is to make as many mistakes as possible and just find one thing that works. You are literally becoming the Thomas Edison of creating, you know, a cartoony blade, okay? So don't be disheartened if you feel like a lot of your concepts suck. In fact, the more sucky concepts you can create, the better the concept artist you are, in my opinion. Because all these concept artists that, you know, you think, they always show you the final product, don't they? You ever notice that? But it's not until you pick up the concept art book that comes with the special edition of the game that you see that, oh, they actually tried like hundreds of different ideas. Hundreds of different ideas. And wow, like a few of these actually really suck. These really suck. Why did they even bother with that? You know? And that's the thing that a lot of people forget. They just forget about all of those little tiny iterations and things that never worked. And they think that they're supposed to be perfect, which does suck. It does suck thinking that, and I've been there too. I've been there too, guys. So don't worry at all about that. And that is that is my boss. Oh wait, hang on. Ah, shoot. Oh. Okay, good. That wasn't anything that was bad. Okay, I'm gonna quit out of Slack. I'm so embarrassed. There you go. Okay, so there's my boss just talking about where I have to be in about 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and speed this up. So look at that. So we've kind of built upon that floral pattern. We've built upon the floral pattern that was found in the Spanish motif up here. And we've made something interesting. Let's find something else in here that we like, possibly for the hilt design. Hey, I really like these things in here. These little guys, let's see. Basically these blue ones right here. I really like this little grape type thing. It almost looks like a berry. But we can also translate that into scales. It almost looks like scales. So we can use that for our sword. Sure, why not? Let's go ahead, head on over to the sword. And let's go ahead and use some of those scale effects. And look at how nicely that fits in right there. Boom, boom. And notice how I'm just drawing half of it. I'm only drawing half. Because eventually we are going to mirror this again. We are going to mirror this again. We'll have that cool scaly pattern going down to the bottom. What should we do for the hilts? The hilts, well, we also have like these swoopy type of long lines. We have these lines that go through the piece as well. That would look nice. So let's have some of those swooping lines for the hilt. So let's go ahead and disregard this guy here. Let's disregard this old hilt because it's not that great. Let's use some swoops. That looks cool. Start with something like that. And we can still have, let's see, let's go back for some inspiration real quick. So the swoop has a couple different things that come out of it. So we have like a shape like this that could come out of it, and maybe up here we could have spikes come off of it like that. And notice this. Okay, so here's a prime example of a space where I will modify this to be more in balance. Because do you see how this area, and go ahead and highlight this. So see how this division of the hilt matches the same size as this? We want to change that up a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to erase this line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down a little bit further like this. And then I'll add in a small piece right here. Maybe this small piece will have some more of these floral designs. Maybe some more of these leafy designs. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the difference between something that's interesting to look at and something that's maybe not so much interesting to look at. Very, very small things that can help your piece. So give that a go. Give that a go. For this hilt piece here, we will have another floral design. There we go. Okay, so now that you've created a new type of sword, or a variation of the sword with the motifs that you saw earlier, now it's time for the fun part. Now we get to take this sword. Let's go ahead and Control-C. This is another really important thing that you guys will be using a lot, is Control-C, delete, Control-V. What I just did was I selected what's there, deleted it, and pasted it again, which now puts it on its own layer. Before, all these swords were on their own, like they're all on one layer, so they're all stuck together. I wanted this one on its own layer because we're going to be modifying it. And speaking of modifying something, our best friend when we're about to make big changes is Control-J. Control-J will always, think of it as a save state. You just saved the state of your sword. Now we're going to go through here, and we're going to just go ahead and erase. Let's go ahead and erase half of this sword. Take out our eraser, select ink. The reason I like ink here is because it's always at full strength. You're erasing at full strength all the time. You don't have to rely on pushing hard with your hand, and that's going to save you It's going to save your life, trust me. So let's go ahead and do our same technique. Control J, Control T, flip it horizontally, and look at that. Now we can begin to kind of set this sword up again. Set the sword up again to a point that we like it. Ah, that looks pretty dang cool. Wow, isn't that awesome? Look at that. We now have an awesome sword that is built upon a motif. It's built upon a motif. You're inspired by that. And I want to encourage you guys to do the same thing. I think that might be all the time that we have. In fact, if I did another weapon, it might just be a little bit redundant. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take this one a little bit further, and we're going to add some details to it, because I want you guys to know where to go from here. Let's say that you get to this point and you're like, okay, cool. So I have a cool, balanced blade that's built upon a motif of my choosing. Now I want to know how to make it look cooler. And that is going to be by introducing the other thing that we talked about last week, and that is values. So let's go ahead and get rid of everything on this page and make sure that it's just the blade. I want you to take out your magical fairy wand tool, and I want you to select everything around the blade. Just click anywhere around it. Now I want you to go to selection. This is another really important thing for masking your piece. I want you to go to modify and expand. Expand it by, let's say, 3 pixels. Why not? 3 pixels should be good. Now what that does is it pulls in your selection. You can see right here. The selection is outside the blade. I'm pulling it in just slightly. In fact, looking at it, I actually want to do that again. Select, modify, let's expand it again. Maybe by another 5 pixels. That's good. So now see, the selection is right inside of the lines. So what's going to happen is we're going to hit Shift-Control-I, which is going to invert our selection. Okay, you still following me? Still following me? Don't worry, if you're on YouTube, just back up and watch it over again. And then fill it with a color. Create a new layer. Create a new layer, which is Shift-Control-N. Create it behind your line art and fill it, which is Edit, Fill. I have mine set to F4. You can set up all kinds of hotkeys. Am I going to teach you how to do that? No, you can look it up yourself. Or maybe I'll teach you later, but right now, it's not that hard to do. It's not that hard to set up hotkeys. In fact, I'd rather just kind of skip that boring stuff, since you can find out how to do that from someone else's tutorial in about 5 seconds. I'm just going to focus on the things that I really think are important for you guys learning how to become concept artists. Okay? So now, the next thing that you want to start doing is I want you guys to start going in there, and I want you to start adding values. Add some values. Again, don't worry about your colors, so to speak. Don't worry about your colors, so to speak. My phone is going crazy. Hang on, I gotta turn this off. Let's put that there. All right, cool. So don't worry about colors. Just worry about values. So let's go ahead and bring this down a little bit. Let's bring this down. I like to work in blue just because it's a very pleasing color for me to look at. And let's go ahead and start adding in some values. So let's paint in sort of these dark grays in this area here. Dark grays. Cool. That's not bad, not bad. Let's say we want this inside part to be dark gray as well. And what we're going to be doing is sort of a mixture between shading and sort of helping to separate. We're helping to separate out the differences in your design. Okay, so look, I'm zooming in here, and I am going to start erasing out. By the way, you'll notice that the values, take a look, the values are on their own layer. I'm putting the values on top of this mask that we just created. Okay, and I'm going through here. I'm just going to start erasing. And think in terms of bright, medium, and dark for your values. Similar to large, medium, small. Think of brightest, middle, and dark. Okay? I could have said that much more eloquently, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Let's go ahead and color this Hilton darker. Let's say I want this part to be the dark part. Maybe this part should be the dark part. And look, the mid-tone, our mid-tone is actually already taken care of because that is the sort of mid-tone blue that's right here. So actually what we'll be doing after this is going in and adding in the brightest points. Okay, so let's go ahead and go in there and add some lightness. Add some lightness. And we'll also create this on its own layer. And I'll label these so that way when you guys download this later, you guys can easily separate these out. Okay, so light, dark, mid, let's go ahead and throw in some lighter parts. Now I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to do something like this, where it's almost like I'm lighting it. I'm not so much concerned about just putting values on it as much as I am lighting it and making it feel like it's real, like it's existing in the world. And what I'm doing is I'm lighting it from the top. You guys notice that? All the light is hitting the uppermost parts of the blade, the parts that are facing toward the top. This is also going to add depth to your blade. Now I know this is a bit more of a advanced technique, so don't worry if you feel a little bit lost here. Lighting takes a little bit of time, but in general, I want you guys to start getting comfortable with adding values to your pieces, because that is going to come into play basically through the rest of this entire course. So it's good that you get started now. So speaking of depth, once you decide where your light is coming from, you can then easily start adding depth to, say, the insides of these designs. Say, okay, I want this to feel three-dimensional. So the light is going to get caught at the top of this. Do you see how immediately that is pulling that design off of the blade and giving it a three-dimensional feel? Isn't that awesome? And then, of course, last but not least, we are going to, I'm going to adjust these lines just a little bit more. I want these darker. Because you can also go in, and let's say we're going to do an overpaint layer, which I like to simplify to OP. Just make a new layer, call it OP. And then you can also, if you're feeling a little bit feisty, if you're feeling a little adventurous with your new blade, your new sword, go in there and start overpainting. And that basically means that, you know, the layer that you're working on now, everything you say goes. So I could paint over this entire thing. Just start going in there, but again, you're working with the values that have already been laid down. And what I want you guys to do here is say, oh, let's add a little bit more shadow to this area. What that's going to do is create even more depth for this design on the sword. It's going to make it feel like these designs are three-dimensional and actually popping off the sword. You can also use this opportunity to clean up a few things, to sharpen a few details in the sword. Make it look the way that you want. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And I want to stress, guys, that you might like this design. You might look at it and be like, wow, I can't believe, oh, he did it the first shot. I'll never be able to do that. No, I look at this sword and all I see is an idea. And that's probably the most important thing that you guys can understand towards the end of this tutorial, is that, again, I'll reiterate what I said earlier, is that don't get too attached. Don't get too attached, because your job as an artist is not necessarily to create the right design. The right design will automatically show itself when the time is right. Your job as a concept artist is to create as many designs as possible. In fact, I would argue, when you think you've got a good design, I would challenge yourself to say, you know, I like this design, but I am going to distance myself from it and create another one. I'm going to throw this one away, or not throw it away, but you know what I mean. Push it to the side and try again. Because you might just, in a similar way to how I record these shows, multiple takes sometimes lead to you creating all kinds of new improvements, doing something a little bit more efficiently, figuring out how to put something a little bit clearer, taking out offensive language. There's all kinds of things that new takes benefit the show with. So, you guys get what I'm saying. Don't get attached to your stuff too much. And focus yourself now on realizing that you need to be a creator of ideas, not a creator of the perfect art. And if you do that, if you set up that mindset now, it is going to benefit you immensely, because you are going to be a concept artist that people love to work with, because they're not going to be afraid to collaborate with you. They're not going to be afraid to tell you that they don't like it, because they know that you're not going to take it personally. And in turn, you are going to be creating so many ideas that your coworkers, your boss, is going to feel just overwhelmed with choices, overwhelmed with amazing choices, because again, you're going to be creating cool stuff, and you're going to be like, no, I can make it something even better. I can make even something even better. And then, you know, you're just going to be, there's going to be an abundance. There's going to be an abundance of ideas. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Okay, so see how just over a few short minutes, or like over a half an hour, we've created an idea. We've created a cool sword with a motif on it that is based upon something that is actually like from historical culture, or it's based upon it. It doesn't look exactly like a Spanish sword, but you can tell that that influence is there, and that's what we love. We love nuances, which is a fancy way of saying subtlety. Subtlety in your art, nuances, things that are inspired by cultural things, inspired by things in the real world, things that will make people relate to your art, relate to your weapon designs and your characters. But again, it's so subtle that you almost don't pick up on it at first. So I will challenge you guys to try this out for yourselves. Let's go ahead and put all these other things up here. And of course, yeah, of course, that is the way that you create a weapon. Man, I'm really happy that that worked out well. So that is going to go ahead and end today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining me on YouTube. Thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. My name is KNKL347. Again, if you would like to download today's PSD, as well as all the other PSDs from the past, just click up here. It'll take you over to Patreon, where you can support the show, download all kinds of cool stuff, and I appreciate everybody who has been supporting the show. You guys keep it up. And yeah, with all that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and end. We are going to run... Oh, yeah! I do need to tell you guys about Super Smash Con. Okay, so yes, I'm going to Super Smash Con this weekend. It is August 10th through 13th. I'll be there exhibiting the new game I've been working on, Icons Combat Arena. I'll be there with my coworkers, and we'll be doing an art panel, so if you guys are interested about coming to see that, definitely come check it out in Virginia. Chantilly. I've never actually been there before, but that sounds really interesting. And I hope to see you guys there. And last but not least, let's go ahead and head on over to the lovely Lane. You guys take care of yourselves. You guys stay awesome, and I'll see you next week. Wait, where's the music? Where's the music? I need the epic music. There we go. Alright. Take care, guys. Take care. Is it done? Oh! Man, that was a lot of stuff. You guys are so freaking cool. Thank you guys for submitting all your art. And yeah, if you guys would like to get featured yourselves, just head on over to Instagram, submit to #KNKLFanArt, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care.